People often ask, what is the best diet? What is the best diet for health? What is the best diet for rapid weight loss? Well, let's first consider, what should a truly healthy, effective diet contain? What are the ground rules that we could all agree on that define a truly healthy diet for health and weight loss? Well, first of all, a truly healthy diet should not create unhealthy metabolic consequences. Let's take a low-fat diet, for instance, like the ones advocated by most health agencies. If you cut the fat, total fat, saturated fat, and amp up such things as grains, what happens? Your blood sugar goes up, insulin resistance goes up, it leads to prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune diseases, visceral fat accumulation, hormonal disruption, fatty liver, higher blood triglycerides, provocation of the formation of small LDL particles. A low-fat diet, originally intended to reduce cardiovascular risk, actually substantially increases both cardiovascular risk and the potential for numerous other health conditions. So I think we could agree a low-fat diet is a waste of time. In fact, it's detrimental to health. So a truly healthy diet effective for health and weight loss should not invite unhealthy consequences, right? A truly healthy diet, I think you'd agree, should normalize weight without having to go to other extremes, without extreme exercise, without cutting back calories. The diet itself, if it's truly healthy, should allow you to achieve normal weight without trying. A low-fat diet can initially lead to some weight loss, but typically plateaus early. A high-fat diet, on the other hand, typically is much more effective for weight loss if the right fats are chosen. A truly healthy diet should not cause you to cut back on or limit calories. We now know cutting back calories is a very, very a bad idea. Several things happen. One, you're miserable, right? Because you're always hungry. Two, your metabolic rate drops. We learned this from of all things, The Biggest Loser TV show experience. Those people, you may recall, were put through an extreme program of exercise many hours a day and a severe calorie restriction of 1,200 to 1,400 calories per day. It was effective. They lost 30, 50, 70, 130 pounds by the end of the show. After the show, the majority of these people, to their credit, kept up their exercise programs, not quite as vigorous, but still pretty vigorous, and the calorie restriction, and they virtually all regained all that weight. Now, when they were formally studied and their metabolic rate was measured, it was found that these people had experienced a 25% reduction in metabolic rate, which is huge. In other words, prolonged calorie reduction led to a drop in metabolic rate because the body thinks you're starving, that you can't find enough food. So it turns down its burn rate, and they regained all that weight despite a low calorie intake and exercise. Cutting calories is a loser's game. We also now know that when you cut calories, and even worse, cut calories and fat, if you ultrasound your gallbladder, even if you start with no gallstones, by week 4, week 8, week 12, the majority of people have developed gallstones. And that's because when you cut calories and you cut fat, you're not keeping your gallbladder busy by squeezing out its bile. The bile is retained and it crystallizes and forms gallstones. And the majority of these people have to go through gallbladder surgery to remove the stones. So cutting fat, cut your metabolic rate, besides makes you miserable, and leads to gallstones. So a healthy diet should not invite you to cut calories or reduce calories. I think we could all agree that a truly healthy diet, effective for health and weight loss, should also supply sufficient nutrients. So if I said, take diet X, but you're going to have to take vitamin B12, you're going to have to take iron supplements, you'll have to take zinc, and you're going to have to get some other nutrients. They're not provided by the diet. You'd say, well, gee, something's wrong with the diet, right? If you have to take all these nutrients to compensate for deficiencies of the diet. Well, this is one of the reasons why I think that vegetarian and vegan diets are wrong, because you must supplement, especially B12 and zinc, because you can't get them. They're only in animal products. So you either have to eat animal products to some degree or take these nutrients. Now, you may say, well, I want to take the nutrients because I worry about sustainability and those kinds of environmental issues. And I understand that. But recognize that humans were not meant to be vegans or vegetarians, and you must therefore compensate for the deficiencies of your diet by taking those nutrients. It's also important that when you craft a truly ideal or healthy diet, be careful what diet you're comparing it to. You'll see this mistake being committed over and over and over again in conventional circles. They'll say things like this: if we compare the DASH diet, or if we compare the Mediterranean diet to the standard American diet, and we all know the standard American diet is awful. It includes such things as processed foods, processed grains, sugary foods, sugary soft drinks, snacks, cookies, packaged foods, right? If we compare a Mediterranean or DASH diet to that diet, there's an improvement. Unfortunately, those conventional advice providers then say Mediterranean diet or the DASH diet or some other diet must therefore be the ideal diet. Do you see how you cannot come to that conclusion? All you can say is that the Mediterranean or DASH diet is better than the standard American diet. You cannot claim that it's the ideal diet. I would argue that they're not ideal, that there are improvements. They are better than most people's diets, but you can go even further. So if we take all those factors into consideration, what does an ideal diet look like? Well, I think we'd all agree that it contains whole, real foods and a minimum of processed foods. I think we'd all agree to that. That, let's say, a pork chop, eggs, avocado, an apple, those are healthier foods than processed packaged foods from the supermarket. I think we could agree, and the science tells us, that limiting carbs is a far more effective strategy than limiting fat. Now, we can call that low-carb diet a paleo diet, we can call it an Atkins diet, a South Beach diet, a ketogenic diet, or one of my diets, the wheat belly or undoctored lifestyles. But the key here is to limit exposure to carbohydrates, especially grains and sugars, and in my programs we go through complete grain elimination. And that's a whole other conversation, of course, but a very powerful strategy. A truly healthy diet should provide sufficient fiber, but specifically prebiotic fibers. That is, fibers that nourish bowel flora. Because if you nourish and feed your bowel flora, they produce from those fibers, from prebiotic fibers, various metabolites, such as butyrate, that mediate numerous health benefits: protection and healing of the intestinal lining, reversal or reduction of insulin resistance, contributes to reduction of fatty liver, reduced triglycerides, reduced blood pressure, deeper dreams, better sleep, happier mood. In other words, having sufficient quantities of bacterial metabolites is critical, and neglecting them can lead to bad things like calcium oxalate kidney stones, or osteoporosis, or diverticular disease, or even colon cancer. So a truly healthy diet, much as a primitive diet does, must include generous intakes of a prebiotic fiber. The ideal intake, by the way, of prebiotic fiber is 20 grams per day. And you can see I list a lot of the sources in my books, my Wheat Belly books, Undoctored books, and my Wheat Belly blog and Undoctored blog. I would argue that the truly healthy diet contains absolutely no wheat or grains, this very recent addition to the human lifestyle. Now, that's a whole conversation, but it's the entire basis for my books, Wheat Belly and Undoctored books. And there's a whole long list of reasons why that is: gliadin-derived opioid peptides that are appetite stimulants, phytates that block the absorption of numerous minerals, wheat germ agglutinin, that's a very potent intestinal and body-wide toxin, and amylopectin A, that is the highly digestible carbohydrate that's worse than table sugar. So lots of reasons, but I would argue for my Wheat Belly and Undoctored programs that complete elimination of wheat and grains is a crucial component of a truly healthy diet. Now, you may say, well, gee, in your Wheat Belly and Undoctored lifestyle, you add nutrients like vitamin D and magnesium and iodine. That's right, we do. But be clear on this. Those aren't to compensate for deficiencies of diet. They're to compensate for deficiencies of modern life. So, for instance, we drink filtered water. We have to. You can't drink water from a river or stream anymore, right? Because it's got farm runoff, sewage runoff, other things. And so you must filter water. Either the city does it for you or you do it in your own home. But water filtration removes all magnesium. So we must supplement magnesium. We must supplement vitamin D because most of us don't want to or are unable to run naked in the tropical sun, right? And as we age, we lose the capacity to activate vitamin D in the skin. So we must take vitamin D to compensate. So those nutrients in my programs are not there to compensate for the diet, but for the foibles and quirks and deficiencies of modern life. Now, if these kinds of ideas interest you, I invite you to take a look at my new revised and expanded edition of Wheat Belly. So the original Wheat Belly book came out in 2011. That's the book that changed the thinking of the nutritional world and caused dietitians to sob into their into their oatmeal. But it has changed lives. But I wrote many more books after that, and the program evolved. Some of the strategies evolved, more recipes, a lot more success stories. So I put it all together in this revised and expanded edition of Wheat Belly. So if you want to catch up on all these things that we've been talking about that have transformed the lives of many hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people, take a look at my newest revised and expanded edition of Wheat Belly, available at all major bookstores, and of course subscribe to this YouTube channel.